Hello and welcome back. Tonight we're going to discuss step one for the best investment, which is staka, charity, and why it's so important. Why is it so important to give charity? That's what we're going to have to discuss. Then we have one more step, and then we could get to actual investments when it comes to monetary. Also, whoever is watching this, you should click on the playlist. What does the Torah say about money? And go to the option where it says sort, and then go to oldest, and you should go in order because there's a certain order behind everything, and then it'll make more sense. Let's get into it. Charity, stucco is very important in regards to investments. Charitable contributions are tax deductible. They have something called the donors fund. It's very unique. It allows a person to leave his money, their charity money, the money that they're planning on giving, in one place while it's still being invested, which is a very nice idea because the person could say, okay, money's ready to go. I'm putting aside this amount of money. In the meantime, why should it sit there not making money? So it's a very nice concept that a lot of people use. It also allows one, when one gives charity, you could deduct all the money placed into the fund, even though it's not going to be distributed that year. So it helps with deductions. Now, let's just get into something immediately. The Torah writes in his introduction to Hilchos Taka in Yoreh De'ah and Siman Reish Mem Zayin that giving tzedakah doesn't detract from one's money. On the contrary, it actually causes one to get wealthier. A lot of people think, oh, I'm giving stock, I'm giving money now. It's gonna detract from what I have. Not true. I'm gonna take a few minutes to read word for word what the Torah says over here because he has a very lengthy introduction. He says it's a mitzvah aseh litin staka kafi hasagas yado. There's a positive mitzvah to give stock according to one's financial ability. There's a positive mitzvah from the Torah that we're talking about. Uma'od ma'od sarich adam lihizaher. Ba yoyser mikol mitzvahs aseh. And a person needs to be very, very, very careful with this mitzvah of tzedakah more than any other positive mitzvah. You know why, says the Torah? Ki efshar sheyavo lidei shvichos damim. If a person doesn't give charity, it could lead to murder. Sheyamos ha'ani hamavakish im lo yitin lo. If you're not going to give a poor person any needs, it could lead to murder. He's going to die of starvation. And he quotes like some episodes. It's a negative commandment if you look away from someone who wants to give money and you don't give him, and that's not good. He goes on and continues, Vein Kisa Yisrael, Mischoinin Medas Emes Omedes Elo B'Staka. Vein Yisrael and Regalim B'Staka, we're only going to get redeemed by giving charity. Gedoyle Mikol or Korbanos, it's better than all the Korbanos than the sacrifices. Kol ha'oises staka u'mishpa kilu malei kol olam chesed. If you do chesed, if you do charity, it's as if you filled the whole world with kindness. Then the Torah says, "L'oilom ein odam me'ani min hastaka." A person will never get poor by giving staka. V'lo davarav v'lo hezik mizgor lo yado. Nothing bad will happen from giving staka, says the Torah. V'kol hamarachim al aniyim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu marachim alav. Whoever has mercy on poor people, Hashem will have mercy on you. V'ish la'odam liyitin al yibo. A person should pay attention and focus on the fact that just like he's always wants Hashem to provide for him sustenance, a good way to make income, a parnasa, and you want Hashem to listen to your requests, so too you have to listen to the requests of the poor people. And Hashem listens to the requests of the poor people. So you have to be careful with this. Then the Torah says this world is a Gilgul HaChoizer. You might live a wealthy life. Your child might live a wealthy life. What about your child's child? World's like a revolving wheel. Something will happen, generations. Someone will make a decision, a life change, uh, a bad mistake, a bad choice. He'll do something. And that will cause him to become poor. Or he won't do something which will cause him to become poor. So therefore we should have mercy on poor people because it might happen to our descendants. Hadavar Badaku Manusa, it was trialed and tested. Ki b'shvil hastaka shenoisin lo yechaser lo. When a person gives taka, he won't lack anything. Ela adra b'toisif lo yoisher v'kavod. On the contrary, the more a person gives taka, the more wealth that person will have, and the more honor that person will have. Rabbis teach us, "B'chol davar osur l'nasos Hashem." It's prohibited to test Hashem. You're not allowed to test God. You're not allowed to say, "I'm going to do this," under the assumption that now you're going to give it back to me. Chutz mizu, except for staka. V'chanuni abizos, Gemara in Taanis talks about this stuff test. It's doiches, a gezeros, a koshos, uberav, tatzil, amavis. It pushes off bad decrees and it's even safe from death giving charity. That's the Torah in his introduction to Hilchos Taka. The Torah, for those who aren't aware, is the person who is responsible. It's the son of the Rosh, Reb Yaakov. It's the son of the Rosh. And it's the person who is responsible for compiling and organizing the four sections that we have in our Book of Laws. The Shulchan Aruch followed the the way that the Torah organized the four sections of the Shulchan Aruch: Orach Chaim, Yordei, Choshen Mishpat, Even Ezer. So the Torah is really the first person to organize all of the halachas. He's the end of the time period of the Rishonim, around 900 years ago or so, 1,000 years ago. So it's a very big work, and this is an introduction to Hilchos Taka, and he has a tremendous amount. There's tons and tons of halachas on Taka. We're not going through the halachas, we're going more through the ideas. The Hashkafas. That's what the Torah says. The word nasan means to give in Hebrew. It's a palindrome, which means if you take the word and you flip it around, you get nasan. It's the same exact word. That's what a palindrome means. What's the idea over here? The Baal HaTurim, which is the Torah, by the way, on its commentary to Shmos, Chafei Beis says, the more a person gives, the more he's going to get. When you give, you get. It's that simple. The simple reason for this is, we have to come up with a reason. What's the reason for all this? The more a person gives, the more he'll get. Simple reason for this is someone who gives tzedakah. If you give charity, you're going to receive a siyata dishmaya, heavenly assistance. That will cause you to become wealthier. In order that now you're going to be able to give more tzedakah. So in other words, the idea over here of why a person will get more money by giving tzedakah is because now Hashem wants to give you the ability to even give more tzedakah, to give more charity. So explains the Rabbeinu Gershom and the Gemara in Baba Basra on Yudam and Aleph. Tzedakah zo oishir shielo nechasim v'oishir shiasim im tzedakah. Now you're going to get wealthy, more actual wealth, and you're going to get a portion of that wealth. You're going to be able to distribute more tzedakah. There's another logical, practical reason. We discussed to get out of debt and how important that is. Someone who's very careful and cognizant enough to get out of debt and closely calculate how much he owes will probably be more likely to take care of his money more than someone who doesn't give tzedakah. This is nearly Lefinias Daiti, according to my humble opinion. This type of person will know the importance of discretionary income, which we also discussed what that means, and will probably be more likely to make better financial investments, decisions, and life decisions. So it's saying it from a practical perspective that someone who's going to give tzedakah, it's more likely that that type of individual will just make better decisions in general in life and financial decisions. So therefore, he's going to get more money because he's already making the right decisions. And he knows how to invest properly, so his money is already making him money. I once said that at a shir that I gave between Mincha and Ma'ariv somewhere. Someone came up to me after and said, I don't think that's shot. It's not a Torah shot. Okay. Look, take it or leave it. That's an idea that I thought of. I wrote it down. Anyways, another explanation could be the concept of midah connected midah is invoked over here, measure for measure. Meaning because you generously gave away your money, Hashem will therefore give you more money. Measure for measure. The Ben Yoyada and the Gemara in Tainus on Testament Aleph asks, how is it that many people give a lot of charity, but still they don't see financial success? So he says they have other sins that are causing their charity to be outweighed. The pasuk says, "Vayichu li truma." Beginning of Parshas Truma, take from me truma. Chafei beis, shemen lemaor, oil for an illumination. Chafei vav over there. Beginning of Parshas Truma discusses matters pertaining to building the Mishkan and the donations towards this cause. Why does the Torah relate the halachas of oil, which don't have to do with actual building the Mishkan over there? So the Sefer Oel Aryeh, Bar Kon, Allah Torah, he quotes Moshe Feinstein, who says that many people, and you see this all the time, they're very happy to donate money for a building, such as a yeshiva or a shul. However, once the building is built, they're not so quick to donate money towards these causes. The Torah is teaching us that there's an obligation to donate money to build the Mikdash, Mishkan. So too, you have to donate money towards the oil. Money has to be donated even after the Mikdash, the Mishkan is built. Now, there's a lot of reasons why people tend to be more willing to donate money to a building being constructed rather than after. But just as money has to be donated towards the construction of the building, so too it has to be donated after in order to maintain the building and its expenses. In fact, Rabbi Forrest told me that some new shuls purposely increase their goal of how much they need to raise for the building expense in order that their maintenance fees are going to be covered for several months or even years after the building is constructed. So there's such an idea. It's a whole discussion of itself. Donating, giving charity when people know versus when they don't know. When no one knows, it's definitely better. No one knows that you gave, so you don't get the honor for it. And this perhaps could be why some people like donating with the building. When the building's being built, they'll get honor for it. Maybe their name will appear on some sort of plaque. I like to joke when it comes to the plaques. I mean, I have family who's on a lot of plaques and stuff like that who donated money. But the way that I see it, plaque, it's like a plaque on teeth. Ridiculous. Look, others will argue and say, you need it nowadays. You need it. It's the only way. You need the dinners. You need to do all this stuff. The dinners. You need to honor people. You need to do the dinners. Because if you're not going to do it, then they won't give. All right. Look, I'm not an expert in this topic, but all I know is it's more lishma. It's for its own sake. If there's no recognition, there's no honor involved. Talking at a high level over here. Anyways, this is the idea. Let's discuss something else. There's a lot of halachas about where should a person's tzedakah go. There's a lot of charity to give, tremendous amount to give. Just want to actually add something that I just learned actually a few days ago. I'm going through right now the Chovos HaLevavos. Plan to go through the whole thing. Sha'ar Bitachon was excellent. Now I'm going through other sections. And I just saw a few days ago in the Shar Nia, I'm learning now, with Rabbi Victor Miller Zatzal, his commentary. And he actually talks about sukkah in here and where to give, where not to give. He says something which really stuck with me. He talks about wealth in general. We're not going to go into it now because it has nothing to do with charity. But he says when a person gives to Ivy League schools, he says in particular Harvard, he says it's a sin. Any money that's given to a college today, he says, you are giving to the worst den of criminals. This is because the colleges of today are the underworld. They are worse than the mafia dens. Their morals are so evil. They have mixed dormitories and mixed bathrooms, which obviously we don't believe in our religion. When you support colleges today, you are not only wasting your money, but you're also doing a sin with your money. Very harsh terminology. But you know what? He's right. If you think about it, you know. And you already see now that they're getting defunded because of all of the anti-Semitism and the protests that are going on, which are out of hand and which are dangerous. Vandalism, overtaking buildings. That's not freedom of speech. That's insanity. But anyways, that's another topic in and of itself. Rabbi Eliyahu Schneider, whose Chabura I used to learn in Nordea, said that tzedakah, charity, shouldn't just go to beginner programs, kiru programs, trying to bring new people closer to Judaism and not to advanced yeshivas and kolos. That's like filling up pockets that have holes in them with coins. It's money. That's not good. You have to make sure that places where serious Torah learning is happening has support in order to patch up those holes, so to say. The Orchos Sadikim in Shar Tzidkonos quotes a medrash that says that after Yaakov worked for Lavan, he made a pile of everything that he owned. And he asked Esav if he would prefer to be buried in Marasa Machpelah or take whatever he wants. Esav responded the latter. Orchos Sadikim, this is in the Shmos Rabbah, Lamed Aleph Yudzayin. Orchos Sadikim derives from this medrash that one shouldn't spend money for no reason. However, if it's for a mitzvah purpose, for example, hiring someone to teach you Torah or buying farm, then one certainly should generously spend money. You know, there's actually a shaila in Hilchos Taka. Does the money that you use for svarim, does that count for towards Meiser? General halacha is not. But look, I practice what I preach. I didn't never calculate exactly how much all this is worth. But but I would say it's close to 40, 50,000. A lot of money, but it's a good investment. It's a great investment. What's a better investment than farm? Very few things in this world. Chovos HaLevavos, Shar Bachina. The third chapter teaches us that the mitzvahs and good deeds that a person does are his true property. All his money and material possessions are not actually his. Either they're going to be taken from him, which is why ancient coins were called zuzim from the word zazim, which means move, since they move from one person's possessions to another. And one day a person could be wealthy, the next day he could lose all of his money, or he may be taken from them, meaning he'll get killed. Something to keep in mind. Medrash Tanchum and Matus involved. Just think about that for a minute. We just saw over the last 5 days or so with this whole tariff situation, how much the market could swing. It's down 15, down 10% and up 10%. Now for crypto and Bitcoin, that's nothing. But for stock market, that's a lot. Today, the S&P 500 rose 10%. When was the last time the S&P 500 rose 10%? I mean, we're going to come back to that. We didn't have a video yet on what the S&P 500 is. It's top 500 companies, but in the US, but you see, it's possible to happen. A person could be killed. He's finished. That's it. He's done. Yerushalmi in Masech Shkalim on Daf Tesvav and Aleph relates fascinating story. Rabbi Chama and Rabbi Hoshia, who were traveling, they passed the shuls of Lod and they commented about them. Rabbi Chama said to Rabbi Hoshia, "Wow, look at how much money is buried here." Takal Charatin explains that the rabbi was praising the generous contributions that they gave to the shul. Rabbi Hoshia responded, "Look at how many people are buried here." Right? Amar Rabbi Chama or Chanina Rabbi Hoshia, Kama Mamon Shiku Avoisai Khan. Oh, sorry. Yeah. First rabbi said, "Look at how much is buried here." Rabbi Yehoshua responded, "Look at how many people are buried here." Which means, is there no one who can learn Torah? Meaning, what's the point of having nice shuls if no one's going to be learning Torah? I'm not going to name the shul, but I remember once for one of my friends who married someone from not from the Five Towns, Far Rockaway area. The Vort was at a different shul, different community. I walked into the shul. I said, "This is probably the nicest shul I've ever been into." It's Shomer Shabbos. Shomer Shabbos. They don't drive to shul. So it's literally one of the nicest shuls I've ever been to. But they got no one learning there. No one's there the whole day. They're there for a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours at night. That's it. What about the whole day? They could have taken the $5-10 million that it cost to build that shul and had people learning there full time the entire day. And I know the area, and it was close to an area where they're able to get people to learn there full time the entire day. That's why money is very telling. Where's a person going to put their money? What are they going to spend money on, and what are they not going to spend money on? Is a person disciplined? Do they hold of certain principles or not? What are those principles? It's incredibly telling. Korban Eida, one of the big commentaries on the Yerushalmi, explains that Rabbi Hoshia knew that there were very poor and sincere people who wanted to learn, but they couldn't because of their poverty. That's why he said, "Look at how many people are buried here." There's not such a well-known sefer. It's called Pesher Dover. It's a commentary on the Yerushalmi and Mesech Shkalim. And he explains that those shuls weren't built for the sake of heaven. They weren't built l'shem shamayim. And then he writes, "Ein l'cha davar gadol lifnei Hashem." There's nothing greater in front of Hashem, in front of God. Ella mishatoimei Torah. There's nothing greater in front of Hashem's eyes than people who support people learning Torah. Umafarnsam b'chavod, and they support them in an honorable way. Shelibam poinu l'ilma b'nachas, so that they're able to learn in a way that is peaceful, calm. I'll tell you right now, personally, this line speaks to me 100%. I've been learning many, many years, almost 2 decades now, straight. Been married 7 years. The expenses go up. We're gonna have our fourth kid soon, Mitzvah Hashem. And I'm telling you, if I wasn't getting additional help from some of my chavrusas, I don't know, things might be different. Now, not necessarily that we needed that extra money, but that just to have it there, knowing you have a cushion of comfort and that you have, and that you don't need to be worried, oh, what's going to happen now with the four kids, with the tuition, with the private school, you know, the Beis Yaakovs. It's expensive stuff over there, and all the other expenses that come along. But knowing that a person has that buffer, and that the buffer could last longer if they need it, it's comforting. And instead of a person coming to say, oh, now I need to pick up and stop learning full time or teaching full time or both to get a job that's more lucrative, which, by the way, there are plenty of rebbes out there and plenty of people out there who simply left the realm of Kli Kodesh because of that inclination. And that's what caused them to leave. And that's what the Pesher Dov is saying over here. That when you support Torah, it's huge. It's game over. Look, there are a lot of people who shouldn't be learning full time. That's another discussion. Or they shouldn't even be teaching full time. There's a lot of teachers out there. I'm not even talking about just rabbis. They are not good teachers. And they do not know their stuff. And some of them are not nice and they're rude. But that's another discussion. The point is that this line is huge, which is saying that what? That to learn peacefully, be able to sit and learn peacefully. And then he continues and he says something so intense. You'll probably never hear anything as intense as you're about to hear in regards to tzedakah, charity, in your entire life than this line right here. Those who spend extra money, even one unobligated crown on a letter in the Torah will be held accountable. If someone spends to have a beautification, a hiddur, on a Sefer Torah that they're writing, even on a crown on a letter, are going to be held accountable. He says it's actually considered a sin. We see from this that our money has to be donated to the right places and the right people. Giving charity isn't enough. The money has to be given to the right place or the right person. And a lot of these non-for-profits, oh, they're for profit, all right. They're making money. When you give money to a Talmud Chacham, a scholar direct, that's going straight to him. No hidden fees on the side. There's no guy that's trying to take a cut out of that. It's going straight to him. Something very important to say over there. One of my previous chavrusas, I mean, I've had multiple already, that they purchased and they donated a Sefer Torah. So I told them straight up, you're gonna spend 60 plus $1,000 on a Sefer Torah. Why don't you just support a full kollel for a year or two with that money? He said, good point. That's what the rabbi of my shul said. I said, okay. So why don't you do it? Oh, by the way, you think I'm afraid? I'm gonna, if I don't care if someone is paying me or not. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the MS. I'm not watering it down over here. This is undiluted Torah. This is real Torah. There's enough fake Torah out there. That's why I'm trying to do what I do. Because there's enough fake Torah out there. All those fakes. They're not teaching real Torah. It's distorted and it's twisted. This is authentic Judaism that we're teaching over here. That I'm teaching. And I don't care how much the guy pays me. I don't care if he's giving me tens of thousands of dollars over all the years. Couldn't care less. I'm telling you as it is and how it should be. So that's what I told the guy. He didn't even have a good. He said, "Yeah, we're doing it. Okay, look, look, it's better than wasting $60,000 on a high-end vacation, right? Or vacations, no question there. But optimally, we're talking about over here, and this is something which a lot of times doesn't get focused on. People learning Torah. A lot of people they're quick to donate to all these other uh, charitable causes, which are important. You can't forget about the Torah because that's the main point. That's why you got to reference the playlist on Sefer Yeshua and go to 1,8. Perek Aleph Pasuk Ches V'Hagisa Bo Yom V'Layla. 9-part series. Why is Torah so important? It's 9 different videos over there. It's almost like 3-4 hours. That's fire. And I noticed, by the way, also that those weren't even viewed as much. Some of them were viewed a lot. But as much as the other ones, it wasn't. People, they're afraid. Don't be afraid. You gotta learn Torah. That's what it all is. That's the main thing, learning. Anyways, Rabbi Frand quotes this Gemara as well in a Sefer Rabbi Yisachar's Frand imprint on pages 187 to 188. And he says that Rabbi Chama saw how great the material sacrifice of all those who contributed to building a beautiful shul to honor Hashem was, and thought of the nobility of the sacrifice. But even in expenditures spent beautifying a shul, Rav Hoshea, he saw a misappropriation of the funds. He saw a misappropriation of the funds, which is exactly what we're talking about. Of the funds entrusted to them by Hashem, which was tantamount to murder. What should they have done with their money? They should have opened another yeshiva, Beis Yaakov. They should have paid Rebbeim more so that they could remain in Chinuch without worrying whether they would be able to marry off their children or not. Which is so true. Talk about people who are underpaid, the Rebbeim. Actually have a movement now. President Trump, he's trying to pay teachers more. We'll see what happens. My great-great-grandfather writes in his Sefer Terasvi, he says that tzedakah is so important, giving charity is so important, because it's tzedakah tatzil amavos. The pasuk says that charity could rescue a person, save him from death. The question is, how does that happen? It's a pasuk in Mishlei, by the way. In Mishlei, in Yud Beis. What is so important about the mitzvah of tzedakah that it has the ability to save a person from death? Why does this mitzvah of charity save from death more than any other mitzvah? Zohar and the Gemara and Nedarim say an ani is chashuv k'meis. The Gemara and Nedarim on Zayin Beis. A poor person is considered as if he's dead. When someone gives him money, when someone gives this poor person money, it's as if the poor person just underwent resurrection. Therefore, since the giver saved this poor person from death, mida keneged mida, measure for measure, the person who gave this tzedakah will be saved from death as well. Tzedakah tatzil mamavis, it saves from death. The Gemara in Baba Basra and Daf Yud says that someone who gives charity will be saved from a weird type of death. The Nachlas Yaakov, also the author of the Chavos Das, explains that one can only be saved from a bizarre type of death by giving charity. However, one cannot be saved from a natural death, which is an important point. Ma'am Lois, Mishlei over there, on that pasuk Tzedakah Tatzil Amavis, explains that an acronym of Tzedakah Tatzil Amavis is Mavis. Death. Think about that. The letters aren't in order to allude to the point that tzedakah has the ability to save from a weird death. That's what it is. Tzedakah Tatzil Amavis. How many times do we need to give tzedakah? Rashi explains that we have to give even 100 times. Rabbeinu Bechai explains that when we give tzedakah, Hashem will give us more money. Torah Tamima and Devarim, Tes Zayin Yud explains that we should give even a small amount. Even poor people have to give, as the Gemara in Gittin says. Even poor people. Gemara in Gittin Tav Zayin. The Mishnah Avos explains that everything depends on the abundance of good deeds. Hakol lefi rov ha'maisa. Rashi explains that we're judged for the actions we do. If we have more merits than sins, then we're going to get rewarded and vice versa. Rambam explains it's better to give $1 100 times rather than give $100 at once. Why? because we're going to naturally become more of a giving person when we give more times. Chafetz Chaim explains, when we give 100 times, we prevailed against our evil inclination, our Yetzer Hara, 100 times, which is much more than just one time when someone just writes a check for 100. Sefer Mashal Lamahad Avedoma on page 226 relates a beautiful story. Basically, in short, there was in the center of the city, there was a river that divided the city. On top of the river, there was a weak bridge. One day, there were a group of 30 people on the bridge, and then suddenly it collapsed. They fell into the water. There were two bystanders, and they went into the water. They tried saving people, and other bystanders shouted and said, "You're outnumbered. You're not going to be able to save all of them." They responded, "Even though we can't save all of them, we'll at least save some of them. We should try to save as many as we could. It's even worth it if we save one life." The same applies to sukkah. Many times we get discouraged. Even though we can't give charity to every single poor person, we should at least try to help as many as we can. The Gemara says in Brachos, end of the Menachos, whether a person gives a little or a lot, as long as his heart is towards heaven. As long as he has good intention, that's the main thing. Someone once texted me or emailed me. I'm not really so close with him. And he asked that we donate to a cause. We donated. It was nothing significant. It was $18. He actually, just today, I saw him coming out of the Minion factory around there. When I came out, he was coming in, and he gave me a big head nod to show of appreciation. It wasn't a big amount, but it just showed that I cared. Remember one time I paid a shiva call. A classmate of mine, his sister, young girl, my sister's age. She died in her 20s when she was married with a kid or two. I went to pay a shiva call, and he told me he wasn't so impressed with that they were able to raise 1 million, 2 million, whatever it was for her husband and kids. He was learning Kol. What was more impressive was the amount of people that gave. That's something to think about also. The simple explanation of this Gemara is whether a person brings a lot of korbanos or a little, as long as he's doing it for the sake of heaven, he's done well. But the same applies to charity. Whether a person gives a little or a lot, as long as his intention is for the right reason. There's a similar story about a thief who knocked down the apples, and the store owner was just standing there watching him take them. Someone said, "No, grab whatever you could. Grab whatever apples you could." One of the lessons of the story is if we're at the end of Shemona Esrei and we realize that we didn't have intention, we didn't have kavanah for most of Shemona Esrei, nevertheless, we should still focus on having proper intent for the remaining part of Shemona Esrei. But another lesson of this is to charity. Even though we can't save everyone, we should try to save whoever we could. We have to realize that the tzedakah we give has major effects. Even if we don't give a significant amount, what's important is that we give what we're able to give. The intent is what matters. We should help and give to whoever we could. That's all that is expected of us. Very important point over there. Very important point. Let's finish this all off in one shot. I was thinking about splitting it up. Maybe we could get more people to view it. They'll get a little intimidated if it's too long. Let's just do the whole thing. It's one topic. One is to be careful not to give too much money. The general halach is 10 to 20% of one's income goes to charity. Not more, not less. More in Ksubas and Dafnun, Mavazbiz, Al Yavazbiz, Yosef Chomish, you don't give more than a fifth. Ramah also in Yerodea passes this way in Siman Reish Mem Tes Sif Aleph. Person's very, very wealthy, you could give more. In the city of Minsk, there was a millionaire by the name of Baruch Zeldowitz. He donated a fortune in charity. He supported widows, orphans, married off poor brides, and saves many from starvation. He was also one of the biggest supporters of Torah. The tide turned and he lost all of his money. He barely had food to put on his table. He went to see Reb Chaim Brisker, and it says that the person who gives tzedakah, he's not gonna have any lack. So he said, "How did I lose all my money?" You're gonna look at the pasuk. It's a Mishlei, Kaf Ches Chav Zayin. They said a story in Yushalayim. The Gemara quotes this in Ksubas on Samach Vav Amud Beis. The salt of money is kindness, chesed. Just like salt acts as a preservative so that one's food doesn't spoil, so too chesed, kindness, and tzedakah and charity act as preservatives for one's money to keep a person from losing it. Furthermore, Rambam rules that one will never become impoverished from giving charity, as we just saw in the introduction of the Torah today. There's the Rambam in Hilchos Matanos Niyim in the beginning, the second halacha. Chazal says someone who shears off a percent of his wealth and gives it to charity will not exhibit any signs of poverty. If all this is true, how come I lost all my money? He knew all the statements of about how important it is to give tzedakah. You see, he was a big giver. Reb Chaim responded that when his father, the Beis Halevi, was appointed Rav of Brisk, he participated in a funeral in the city. When he passed through the cemetery, he saw a gravestone inscribed with the pasuk, Kappa pasa li'ani v'yadel sholcha li'avyon. She spreads out her hand to the poor man, and she stretches out her hands out to the needy. It's at the end of Mishle, Lamed Aleph Chaf. This pasuk is normally inscribed on a woman's grave, not a man's grave. When he returned home, he looked up the man's name in the community ledger. The deceased was an affluent man who gave charity generously. He gave away all of his wealth to charity until he had nothing left. He was so soft-hearted, such a soft-hearted man, and he couldn't withstand the tears and the pleas of the needy. When his money was gone, he gave away his dishes. He pawned the silver menorah and his seder plate, his candlesticks and goblets, until there was nothing left to give. Then two poor people came to him asking for charity. His heart went out to them, but he had nothing to give. He gave it all away already. And then he found a silver spoon that was overlooked. He broke it in half, gave the handle to one, and the other half to the other. When he died, they decided to inscribe the pasuk for Mishli on his tombstone, hinting at this last bit of kindness that he did before his passing. Kapar Pasaliani, he cut the spoon in half and gave it to a bowl, and gave the bowl of the spoon, the round part of the spoon, to the poor man, v'yadel shulchan li'avyon. But the handle of the spoon he extended to the needy. The word kappa hints at a kaf, palm, or a spoon, the spoon part of the spoon. And the word yadel can also mean handle, like in Hilchos Tuma Yad. Oh, so the wealthy man said, now I understand. Since he squandered his money on charity, and one shouldn't give more than a fifth to the needy, Hashem took away all of his money. I did the same thing, so Hashem made me poor. Rav Chaim said, that's not my point. This world is a world of challenges. That man had been tested with the challenge of wealth and prevailed. So he was given the challenge of poverty to see how he would handle it. The idea over here is that the challenges in our lives are constantly changing. Therefore, we can't believe in ourselves until the day of our death. Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Perek Beis, Mishnah Daled. See the recordings from RabbiBlan.com in the Pirkei Avos section. Rashi writes, this is on that Mishnah. Rashi's quoting actually Gemara and Brachos and Chav Tes and Aleph. That Yochanan, he was a Kohen Gadol served for 80 years, and at the end he became a Stuki, heretic. He went off the path. The Gemara in Kiddushin says that every day a person's evil inclination grows in strength. Gemara in Kiddushin on Lamed Amud Beis. Withstanding previous tests is no guarantee that a person will withstand the next one. Every single day are challenges. We're challenged. This is V'yigaretam Bereshis. By the way, you quoted this. Lamed Aleph. Chof Hey. Take a look at the second piece. We'll end with these ideas over here. Someone once told the Satmar Rebbe that business isn't doing well. The Satmar Rebbe says, okay, at least it's going. So many people come to me saying their business has stalled or completely failed and they got bankrupt. Rabbi Galinsky explains, then the Maseches Gittin, says that Shammai says that forbids a man to divorce his wife unless he finds that she has been promiscuous, which makes sense. Hillel says that you could divorce your wife even if she only burnt his supper. How could that be? One day she's not paying attention, the food burns, suddenly her husband should divorce her? What's going on over here? Imagine the following story. She's making supper, she leaves it cooking on the stove, the phone rings, it's her friends calling, they haven't spoken in a while. Emergency conversation. They talk a lot, and then something starts burning. She starts smelling something. She realizes, oh my gosh, it's a supper. The food at the sides of the pot are burnt and ruined completely. However, the food in the middle of the pot is still edible. The house is smoke everywhere, whatever. The food in the middle is still edible. If she's a good wife, she's going to take the edible food and put it on his plate, and she'll eat the burnt part. If she demands equality, she's going to split it half-half. But if she's selfish, she's going to take the edible food for herself and serve him the burnt part. The Mishnah doesn't say even if her supper got burnt. Rather, it said even if she burnt his supper. In other words, she served him burnt supper on purpose, deliberately, while making sure that her own food was edible. That's why he's allowed to divorce her. Such a woman is deserving of a get. What does this have to do with business and charity? See, Satmar Rebbe explained when business is going well, you set aside a generous amount for charity. And for that, you should be blessed. But now that supper is burnt, business is limping along, it's not as good, only part of it's edible. Where were the costs cut? Were they cut at home? Did you stop giving the kid their allowance? Did you go on a vacation as you do every year and spend money on yourself as usual? Only to the poor in the Torah institutions, you sent the burnt food and you cut their expenses? This is something we have to ask ourselves. If business is going well enough to spend the same money on oneself and one's family as before, then one can find the funds to give charity to. Powerful. That's Vigadita and Parshas Akev. Ches Yutes. If we trust in Hashem and know that the money that we earn is not really ours, and therefore we have to manage it wisely as an agent of Hashem. Explains Rav Avigdor Miller Zatzal. In the Ora Avigdor and Chovos HaLevavos Shar Bitachon, Shar Daled Parak Hey on page 401. What this means in practice is if a person makes $1,000 to live on, don't automatically give away $200. You have to manage it in a responsible way. We have to give the Meiser, give the 10% to charitable causes, and put away what we need to cover anticipated future expenses. That which we save should be prudently invested because we're acting as Hashem's treasure. We find that pious people are very careful about their property and seek to increase their assets in a prudent fashion. Remember, we're holding the money of Hashem, so we can't waste it or give it all away. That's an important idea to close off on Stucco. It's a lot more to say on Stucco, but this was powerful. If you made it here, congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. See you in the next one.